So, having gone through COVID myself and having been privy to the way governments around the world are managing or mismanaging the disease, I just feel that we are doing it top down, which is really not the way of managing COVID. It is about getting every citizen to play their bit, to do their part in managing COVID with good behavior. Now, this happens with decentralized management. This happens by getting all citizens groups involved, by sort of basically creating an environment of all of us are in it together kind of attitude. I think some countries have done this extremely well, where communities have played a very big role, where citizens groups have played a very good role, and civil society at large has played a very good role. You can't have police trying to enforce, good behavior or law and order in terms of how COVID is managed. You need people to do that. So I personally believe that we are not doing a good job of managing COVID the way it ought to be.
And do you think there's a part that education could be enhanced and improved in terms of getting people to adopt all these new and very important behaviours? Because it's not one individual, it's the collective that obviously makes the difference.
In the future, I think you need to spend a lot of time educating school children to understand what pandemics are all about, what hygiene and cleanliness and dealing with a disease is all about. And I think there's very interesting gaming approaches to teaching young children what pandemics are all about and how they spread and how you can prevent the spread. I'm supporting one such program which was developed at Harvard and which is now being delivered to school children in rural India. And it's a very interesting program because it teaches them through games in classrooms what pandemics are all about and how viruses spread. So I think that's the kind of education you need to give to young school children. That's where it starts. Why do you need to wear a mask? Why do you need to wash your hands? Why do you need to keep that safe distance? That's the way you have to go about it.
And turning now more specifically to Biocon and the innovation and R&D effort that the Biocon itself is playing a part in the fight against coronavirus. Biocon has been incredibly successful. What are your plans to build on Biocon's achievement in COVID and the disease treatment rather than the prevention, of course, that we've just been discussing?
So the first challenge was testing. India as a country was beginning to see a rapid rise of cases in COVID, and we realized that we needed to test people quite fast and at scale. And we realized we didn't have enough testing kits in the country to do all of this. So the first thing we did was we started developing and offering tests through our labs. So we quickly repurposed one of our very high-end labs with a BSL-2, as they call it, biosafety level 2 kind of laboratory infrastructure into doling out tests at large scale. And then many companies in India, biotech companies in India, started developing and assembling these test kits, which were few and far between those days. We could hardly do 10,000 tests a day across the country. Today, we are doing 1 million, thanks to all these collective efforts of biotech companies and labs that are delivering these tests. And in India, I'm pleased to say that the maximum turnaround time is 48 hours, which is pretty efficient. Then, as a company, we said, look, as we understood the disease, we realized that the biggest cause of mortality was not the virus, but what the virus causes in terms of hyperimmune response. And the hyperimmune response causes what they call as a cytokine storm. And we realized that we have a drug that was actually developed for dealing with downregulating cytokines. And we said, hey, this could be repurposed for COVID perhaps. So what we did was we actually ran a small proof of concept clinical study, and it actually proved that it is doing that job. And, we did a small study where the experimental arm was given the drug and all the patients actually recovered and were discharged. and they came off oxygen very fast. Whereas in the control arm, where the drug was not given, we had some deaths. So it clearly showed that we were actually saving lives. Now, this is a drug that I have licensed to a US company. And so they said that, okay, if you can show us that proof of concept in India, we will run a bigger trial in the US, which can become a global trial. And that's what we are now attempting to do. So I'm quite excited with the fact that this is the only drug that works the way it does, and that gives us a very unique opportunity in COVID management. So I'm quite excited with the fact that we've repurposed this drug in such an amazing way. And we're now really getting into the depths of science to see what else can we learn about the disease, what else can we learn about this drug that can help us to actually have predictive markers that can tell us that this is the exact point at which you use the drug, not an approximate point. Prevent the disease from escalating altogether.
That's a fantastic example of cross-border collaboration, and we've seen a lot of nationalistic tendencies in recent months, and I think this cross-border collaboration and teaming, it's just fantastic to hear about.
Yes, we're even going to the UK now to see if we can help with Europe and UK's needs, and we believe it's all about bringing down the mortality rate to near zero. Then you feel very confident that you can deal with the virus, because it will take a while before the vaccine arrives. And until then, we have to deal with the virus with a sense of confidence that it's not life and death. As long as you can prove that, I think that's what will bring the confidence back into all our lives. In addition to that, I think today telehealth has arrived. In many of these COVID management cases in India, when you're home quarantined, you can link into a tele consult or a telehealth system that actually supervises you, monitors you, and tells you what you need to do as a COVID patient. Equally, I think when you look at a large number of patients being managed in wards of hospitals, doctors can oversee and supervise a large number of patients at one time, and getting their monitor readouts on their telephones or their computers, they can actually know which patient needs urgent attention and which patient doesn't.
I've heard you speak before about healthcare being India's next tech sector. Talk a bit about the importance of data and analytics in the industry, and or what Biocon's doing in that area.
So I personally believe that we've been thrown into the deep end of the digital world, even though we were gingerly looking at it all this time, and now we feel we've got no option but to look at a digital world where this whole healthcare sector is going to transform. And data has always been very important in our business, but we haven't used it intelligently. So this is forcing us to look at data and digital connectivity with patients and prescribers and providers of healthcare. So I think this is now becoming a reality. We ourselves as a company are looking very seriously at digital therapeutics. In fact, we've licensed a very nice digital therapeutic software from a US FDA approved entity, which we will use now to basically market our insulin products, where we can actually have a software that will connect straight with the patients and the prescribers and the providers to give them data on how the diabetes is being managed. Because the better you manage your diabetes, the less is the healthcare spend on the complications that arise out of badly or poorly managed diabetes. So that's the kind of therapeutic software that will actually play an important role in the future. So I think these are very interesting times where the whole concept of telemedicine is becoming a much larger opportunity. You also have now e-pharmacies, because everyone wants contactless retail or e-tailing. And that now becomes a very important opportunity, because I think devices, wearables, data that is going to track diseases and and seeing what it can give us in terms of insights. All this is happening as we speak. It's almost like trying to drink from a fire hose because there's so much happening today.
I think it's incredible, just picking up on your telemedicine point. And I was looking at some data recently that telemedicine itself, or in different forms, has been around for 70 years. But it's the drive from the patient consumer and the demand to not be treated in a hospital, actually to be treated at home, that actually then has driven such an exponential adoption. And I think that's fascinating, that it's actually the patients have demanded the telemedicine interface, although the technology itself has been around for a number of years. Perhaps that's going to be one of the lasting positive impacts that this dreadful virus has actually given the industry.
Absolutely, Pamela. I think it goes beyond COVID. I think now home treatment, home care is going to be a big business. So I think, you can actually start using hospitals for very, critical specialty kind of needs. And the rest of it can be done not in, you can do it at home, and you can do it through telemedicine without them having to come all the way for as an outpatient. So I
Exactly.
think this is going to be a huge new way of delivering healthcare, and I'm very excited in terms of what technology has to offer to transform healthcare